In a remote corner of the Pacific Northwest, where the towering Douglas firs blanketed the landscape like ancient sentinels, lay an uncharted forest known as the Hollow of Lost Souls. It was a place spoken of in warnings, a sprawling maze of trees where many had ventured in but few had returned. Elders in the nearby town of Briarwood would recount chilling tales around campfires, their voices dropping to hushed tones as they described the strange occurrences that seemed to beckon the curious deeper into the woods. Despite the fear, a group of friends, fueled by a mix of bravado and curiosity, decided to challenge the legends. Among them was Sarah, an aspiring photographer with a penchant for adventure, Mark, the skeptic, Lucy, who always believed in the supernatural, and Tom, the joker who often dared the group to do the wildest things. They packed their gear and set off on a crisp autumn morning, the vibrant leaves crunching beneath their boots as they made their way toward the forest. The entrance to the hollow was marked by a decaying wooden sign, barely legible but ominously reading, "Beware, for those who enter may not return." With a shared glance that mingled excitement and trepidation, they pushed deeper into the woods. As they hiked, the sunlight flickered through the canopy above, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Sarah snapped photos, capturing the beauty of the towering trees and the vibrant underbrush. Laughter and banter filled the air, a shield against the whispers of unease that occasionally crept in. But as they ventured further, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew thick and heavy, and the sunlight began to fade, swallowed by the thickening branches above. Shadows stretched ominously, twisting into grotesque shapes. They noticed the forest growing eerily silent, the usual sounds of wildlife replaced by an unsettling quiet. "Maybe we should turn back," Lucy suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. "It feels wrong here." Mark scoffed, brushing off her concern. "Don't be ridiculous. We're just being paranoid." As dusk approached, they stumbled upon a clearing dominated by a massive, gnarled tree, its roots sprawling like serpents across the ground. The tree seemed ancient, its bark twisted and warped, and something about it sent chills down Sarah's spine. She stepped closer, drawn by an inexplicable urge to touch it. The moment her fingers grazed the bark, the air around them shifted. A low, almost melodic whisper drifted through the clearing. "Join us. Stay with us." Tom laughed nervously. "Very funny, guys. Who's messing with us?" But there was a tremor in his voice, and the playful atmosphere was rapidly dissipating. Lucy looked pale, her eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" Before anyone could respond, the whispers crescendoed, a cacophony of voices rising from the earth itself, enveloping them in a chilling embrace. Stay forever," panic surged through the group. They turned to leave, but the path they had taken seemed to vanish, replaced by an impenetrable wall of trees. They were trapped. "Stay calm," Mark shouted, though his voice wavered. "We just need to find our way back." But the deeper they ventured into the hollow, the more lost they became. The trees seemed to twist and contort, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Shadows danced at the edges of their vision, and strange sounds, soft sobs, muffled cries echoed in the air. "Guys, I think we should stick together," Sarah urged, her heart pounding in her chest. But as they moved, the whispers grew louder, the voices intertwining, each one pleading, each one accusing, "Leave us alone." Then they heard a sound that sent icy dread coursing through their veins, the sound of a child's laughter, innocent and haunting, reverberating through the trees. Tom's bravado crumbled as he grabbed Lucy's hand tightly. "We need to go now," but the forest had other plans. The shadows coalesced, forming dark figures that lurked just beyond their sight, watching, waiting. Clara felt an overwhelming sense of despair creeping in, a feeling that time was slipping away from them. They stumbled upon a small, abandoned cabin hidden amongst the trees. The wood was rotting, the windows shattered, but it offered a semblance of safety. They rushed inside, hoping to find a way out of the cursed forest. Inside, dust motes floated in the fading light. Old furniture lay strewn about, and the air was thick with mildew. Mark spotted an old journal on a rickety table, its pages yellowed and brittle. He opened it, revealing frantic entries about the forest's dark secrets, people who had gone missing, voices that lured them, and a warning: never trust the whispers. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from outside, causing them to jump. They rushed to the window, peering through the cracks. Shadows danced in the twilight, and they could hear whispers growing louder, an insistent chorus demanding their attention. Join us, join us. Fear gripped them, and they knew they had to leave the cabin. They gathered their courage and stepped outside, but the forest had transformed. Trees that had once offered a path now loomed like sentinels, blocking any chance of escape. The ground seemed to tremble beneath their feet. Over here, Sarah yelled, spotting a faint glimmer through the trees. They pushed forward, desperate for an exit, but as they ran, the whispers turned to screams, echoing with fury. You cannot leave, you belong to us. Suddenly, Lucy stumbled, her foot caught in a tangle of roots. As her friends rushed back to help her, the shadows swirled around them, coiling tighter and tighter. Run, Sarah screamed, pulling Lucy free. But it was too late. The darkness enveloped them, chilling their bones. They darted through the trees, but the whispers turned to laughter, mocking their attempts to escape. One by one, they felt the pull of the forest, the shadows reaching out to claim them. Mark tripped and fell, and as they turned to help him, he was already being dragged into the darkness, his screams swallowed by the night. Mark, Lucy cried, but Sarah pulled her away, knowing they couldn't help him. They ran, their hearts pounding in their chests, but the forest twisted around them, leading them deeper into its heart. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, they stumbled upon the ancient oak once more. The whispers returned, more insistent than ever, wrapping around them like a noose. Stay forever. Sarah, desperate, remembered the journal's warning. We have to close our eyes, it's a trick, she shouted. Lucy nodded, and they both squeezed their eyes shut, blocking out the sight of the shadows swirling around them. With their eyes closed, the whispers turned into a low, haunting melody. The air grew still, and a strange calm washed over them. They concentrated on the sound of their own hearts, willing themselves to remember who they were, to resist the pull of the hollow. After what felt like an eternity, the whispers began to fade, replaced by the sound of rustling leaves and the distant call of a bird. Hesitantly, they opened their eyes. The ancient oak loomed before them, but the shadows had receded, and the path lay clear. Let's go, Sarah urged, and they ran, not stopping until they burst through the tree line into the light of the setting sun. They emerged, breathless and trembling, but safe. They turned back to see the forest standing silent behind them, the whispers now nothing but a distant echo. Yet, as they looked at one another, they knew they were forever changed. Years later, tales of the Hollow of Lost Souls continued to circulate in Briarwood, but Sarah, Lucy, and the others kept their story to themselves. They had escaped, but in their hearts lingered the haunting melody of the whispers, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the trees. And sometimes, late at night, they could still hear the faint echoes of laughter and cries, a chilling reminder of those who had not returned. In the remote town of Willow Creek, nestled against a vast and ancient forest known as Eldermoor, there existed an unspoken rule: never venture into the depths of the woods alone. For generations, locals had recounted chilling stories of those who disappeared within the forest's embrace, drawn in by the whispers that fluttered on the wind like ghosts of the lost. Among the townsfolk was a young woman named Emily. She had grown up listening to her grandmother's tales of the forest, stories woven with warnings of malevolent spirits and shadowy figures. Yet, as an aspiring photographer, Emily felt an irresistible pull to capture the beauty of Eldermoor. One misty morning, armed with her camera and a sense of adventure, she decided to explore the forest, convinced that the legends were merely superstitions. As she stepped beneath the thick canopy, sunlight fractured into ethereal beams, illuminating the underbrush. The air was cool and crisp, filled with the scent of damp earth and moss. Birds chirped cheerily, and the rustle of leaves formed a gentle symphony. For a moment, Emily felt at peace, the beauty of nature washing away her apprehension. But as she wandered deeper, the forest began to shift. The trees loomed larger, their trunks twisted and gnarled, forming a labyrinthine maze. The chirping of birds faded, replaced by an eerie stillness that settled like a heavy fog. Shadows lengthened, and a chill crept along her spine, as if the forest itself were watching her. Determined to capture the essence of Eldermoor, Emily pressed on. She took photographs of the twisted roots and vibrant ferns, marveling at the beauty that surrounded her. But as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, the atmosphere grew oppressive, the once inviting woods transforming into a suffocating void. Suddenly, she heard a faint whisper, carried on the breeze, curling around her like a lover's caress. "Emily, come closer." The voice was soft, almost melodic, yet carried an underlying darkness that sent shivers down her spine. She paused, heart racing, scanning the trees for any sign of life. "Hello," she called, but only silence answered. Shaking off the unease, she continued, yet the whispers grew louder, swirling around her, beckoning her deeper into the woods. They seemed to dance just beyond her reach, teasing her with secrets hidden within the shadows. "Join us, find us." As the light began to fade, Emily's resolve faltered. She turned to head back, but the path she had taken was gone, swallowed by the forest. Panic surged through her as she stumbled forward, calling out for help, but the trees absorbed her cries, leaving her in a cocoon of silence. The whispers turned into frantic pleas, a chorus of voices layered with desperation. "Help us. Don't leave us." The sound was intoxicating, wrapping around her mind, tugging at her very essence. Emily fought against the urge to succumb, but the forest pulled her deeper, every step feeling like a descent into madness. As night fell, the woods transformed. Shadows twisted into monstrous shapes, reaching out with elongated fingers. Fear clawed at her throat as she sprinted, branches tearing at her clothes, roots tripping her up. "Get away," she screamed, her voice barely a whisper against the cacophony of shadows. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a clearing, illuminated by an otherworldly glow. In the center stood a colossal oak tree, its bark blackened and twisted. At its base lay a circle of stones, ancient and worn, each etched with markings she couldn't decipher. A chill ran through her as she approached, drawn to the tree's ominous presence. "Emily," the voice returned, clearer now, echoing from the tree. "You've come to join us." Fear gripped her heart, and she turned to flee, but the shadows coalesced around her, forming a wall that blocked her escape. The whispers intensified, a chaotic symphony that filled her mind. "Stay. Stay with us." In a moment of sheer desperation, she raised her camera, the only weapon she had against the darkness. "Leave me alone," she cried, snapping a photo. The flash illuminated the clearing for a brief moment, revealing ghostly figures emerging from the shadows, their faces twisted in anguish. The sight was horrifying, and Emily stumbled back, heart pounding. "What do you want?" she shouted into the void, tears streaming down her face. "I just wanted to see the beauty of this place." "Beauty?" The voices mocked. "This is our beauty. You cannot leave with what you've taken." Realization struck her. Her photographs, her intrusion into their realm, had awakened something ancient and angry. The forest was alive, and it resented her presence. "I didn't mean to disturb you," she pleaded, desperation clawing at her throat. "I'll leave, I swear." But the forest had no intention of letting her go. The figures drew closer, their features becoming clearer, revealing faces frozen in pain and despair. Emily could feel their sorrow, a weight that pressed against her chest. "You will join us, or be lost forever," they chorused. In that moment, a flicker of defiance ignited within her. "No, I won't let you take me." With a surge of adrenaline, she darted past the spectral figures, her heart pounding in her ears. The whispers turned into screams, echoing in her mind, but she pushed forward, fueled by survival. The forest seemed to shift and twist, branches closing in, roots reaching out to trip her. She ran with everything she had, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Finally, she spotted a faint light filtering through the trees. The entrance. Hope surged within her, but the shadows lunged, desperate to reclaim what was theirs. Emily burst into the clearing, the light washing over her like a bomb. The whispers turned to wails of rage, and she felt the grip of the shadows begin to loosen. With a final glance back, she raised her camera and snapped one last photo, capturing the essence of the hollow and its tortured souls. The flash illuminated the darkness, momentarily blinding her. Then, as if the forest itself were expelling her, she stumbled through the trees and fell onto the soft earth beyond the thicket. Gasping for breath, she looked back, the trees standing silent once more, the darkness receding as dawn broke over the horizon. Emily scrambled to her feet and ran, not stopping until she reached the edge of Willow Creek. The warmth of the sun enveloped her, but she could still hear the echoes of the whispers in her mind, a haunting reminder of what she had experienced. In the following weeks, she processed her photos, the beauty of Eldermoor juxtaposed with the terror that had unfolded. Yet, something strange occurred. As she reviewed her images, she discovered an unsettling truth. In each photograph of the forest, shadowy figures lurked just beyond the trees, faces twisted in eternal anguish. The spirits she had glimpsed, forever trapped in the realm of the hollow. Though she had escaped, a part of her remained tethered to Eldermore. Each night, the whispers would return, curling around her like smoke, a reminder of those who had not been so fortunate. In her dreams, she walked the forest paths, the shadows beckoning her, whispering promises of beauty and pain. As the years passed, Emily found herself drawn back to the edge of the forest time and time again. The lure of the unknown tugged at her. An insatiable curiosity mingled with an understanding of the darkness that lurked within. She could never truly leave the hollow, it was a part of her now. And so, under the watchful gaze of Eldermore, Emily continued to photograph the beauty of the forest, capturing the essence of a place filled with life and death. The whispers remained a constant in her mind, a reminder of the souls lost among the trees, forever entwined with the darkness that lay just beyond the light. In the heart of the Cascade Mountains, nestled between rugged peaks, lay Mistwood Forest. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, where sunlight filtered through the dense canopy of towering firs and pines, creating an almost ethereal glow. Yet, for all its charm, Mistwood was shrouded in legends that kept the townsfolk of nearby Clearwater wary. They spoke of disappearances, strange lights flickering in the trees, and eerie whispers carried by the wind. Despite the warnings, a group of friends, Ella, Mark, Zoe, and Tom, set out one late afternoon for a weekend camping trip. They were young and adventurous, eager to escape their mundane lives for a taste of the wilderness. Armed with camping gear, a cooler of food, and a single lantern, they drove to the forest entrance, excitement bubbling among them. As they parked and unloaded their gear, Ella took a moment to capture the beauty around her with her camera. "This place is amazing," she exclaimed, snapping photos of the towering trees and the sun setting behind the mountains. "Let's get moving before it gets too dark," Mark said, glancing at the sky. The sun was beginning to dip, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the ground. They followed a narrow trail that wound deeper into the forest. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of nature surrounded them, birds chirping, leaves rustling in the breeze, and the distant sound of a stream. As they walked, the light faded, and an unsettling stillness settled in. "Do you feel that?" Zoe asked, pausing to look around. "It's like the forest is holding its breath." "It's just your imagination," Tom replied, trying to lighten the mood. "We're here to have fun, remember?" They continued on, laughing and joking, but the atmosphere shifted. The sun vanished behind a thick blanket of clouds, and the temperature dropped. Just as they reached a clearing, a low fog rolled in, wrapping around the trees like a shroud. "Let's set up camp here," Mark suggested, looking at the open space surrounded by towering pines. The others nodded in agreement, eager to escape the growing chill. As they pitched their tents, the fog thickened, swallowing the sound of their voices. They gathered around a small campfire, its flickering light dancing against the encroaching darkness. Zoe pulled out her phone, only to realize there was no signal. "Great," she muttered. "We're completely cut off." "Perfect for a horror movie," Tom joked, tossing a stick into the fire. "No cell service, creepy forest, and a bunch of friends." "What could go wrong?" Ella laughed, but the sound felt hollow. As night settled in, the forest transformed. Shadows grew long, stretching and shifting in the firelight. The whispers began, then soft at first, like the rustling of leaves, but growing more distinct, more urgent. "Did you hear that?" Zoe asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's just the wind," Mark replied, though a frown creased his brow. He glanced around the clearing, uneasy. As the fire crackled, the whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices overlapping, echoing around them. "Leave, go back, okay. This is getting creepy," Tom said, his earlier bravado fading. "Maybe we should call it a night," but before anyone could respond, a flicker of movement caught Ella's eye. She turned just in time to see a dark figure darting between the trees at the edge of the clearing. Her heart raced. "Did you see that?" she gasped, pointing into the darkness. "See what?" Mark asked, turning toward her. "I swear I saw something over there," Ella insisted, her voice rising in pitch. "Probably just a deer," Tom said, though his voice wavered. Deciding to investigate, the group edged toward the tree line, flashlights cutting through the fog. As they stepped beyond the light of the campfire, the air grew colder, and the whispers intensified, wrapping around them like a shroud. "Guys, maybe we should stick together," Zoe said, her voice trembling. "This doesn't feel right," but the curiosity was too strong. They moved cautiously, shining their lights into the darkness, scanning for any sign of movement. Just as they were about to turn back, they heard a low, guttural growl echo from the shadows. "What was that?" Mark whispered, gripping his flashlight tightly. Suddenly, a shape emerged from the trees, a tall figure, shrouded in darkness, its features obscured. The friends froze, paralyzed by fear as it stepped closer. It was humanoid but twisted, its limbs too long, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Run!" Ella screamed, breaking the spell of terror. They turned and sprinted back toward the clearing, adrenaline pumping through their veins. As they reached the campsite, the fire flickered, casting eerie shadows across their faces. They collapsed by the fire, gasping for breath. "What the hell was that?" Tom panted, looking around wildly. "I don't know, but we need to leave," Zoe said, her eyes wide with fear. "Now." Mark nodded, scrambling to pack up their gear. But as they moved, the whispers returned, swirling around them, echoing their panic. "Stay. Join us." Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook, and the trees creaked ominously. The friends froze again as the figure they had seen earlier reappeared, standing just outside the circle of firelight. It watched them, unmoving, as if waiting for something. "Don't look at it," Ella shouted, fear gripping her heart. "Just keep packing." They fumbled with their gear, trying to hurry as the whispers grew louder, blending with the sound of their racing hearts. But the figure remained, watching, waiting. In a moment of desperation, Mark grabbed a handful of dry leaves and tossed them into the fire. "Get back," he shouted as the flames erupted higher, casting an even wider circle of light. The figure shrieked a sound that chilled them to their bones and retreated into the darkness, but the whispers only grew louder, as if enraged. Finally, they managed to gather their belongings, and with fear propelling them, they dashed toward the path they had taken earlier. The fog thickened, wrapping around them like a serpent, making it hard to see. The sounds of the forest became a cacophony of growls and whispers, urging them to turn back. "Just keep running," Zoe cried, her voice breaking. They stumbled through the trees, the path twisting and turning, but every direction seemed the same. Time lost all meaning as they raced through the woods, panic and adrenaline pushing them forward. Just when they thought they might be lost forever, they saw the faint glow of the road ahead. With renewed energy, they sprinted toward it, the sounds of the forest fading behind them. As they broke through the trees, the cool night air hit them like a wave. They collapsed onto the grass, gasping for breath. Behind them, the forest loomed dark and silent, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. "Did we make it?" Tom panted, looking back at the trees. "Yeah, but what the hell was that?" Mark asked, still in shock. "I don't know," Ella replied, trembling. "But we need to warn others. No one should go into that forest." They gathered their things and left, driving away from Cedar Hollow as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. But even as they drove, the whispers followed them, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurked within the woods. Weeks later, the group tried to forget the horrors of that night, but the memories lingered, haunting their dreams. Ella, unable to shake the feeling, returned to Clearwater to gather more information about the forest. She discovered that many had disappeared over the years, drawn in by the whispers, their fates sealed by the malevolent force that dwelled within. Determined to uncover the truth, Ella ventured back to Mistwood Forest alone, armed with a flashlight and a resolve to confront her fears. As she stepped into the trees, the familiar chill enveloped her. The whispers returned, low and seductive, beckoning her deeper into the shadows. But this time, she was prepared. She followed the sound, heart racing, until she reached the clearing where they had camped. The air felt charged, and the shadows twisted unnaturally. The totem they had seen before stood in the center, and Ella approached it, feeling drawn to its dark energy. As she reached out to touch it, the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. "Join us." They screamed, and the figure materialized before her, its eyes glowing with a sinister light. But Ella stood her ground. "No," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I won't be a part of this." The figure paused, and for a moment, silence fell over the clearing. Then, with a terrifying shriek, it lunged at her. Ella turned and ran, her heart pounding, the whispers chasing her through the trees. She sprinted back toward the path, dodging branches and roots, desperate to escape. The shadows clawed at her, trying to pull her back, but she pushed forward, refusing to look back. Finally, she burst through the tree line and into the open air. Panting and shaking, she collapsed on the grass, the sunlight warming her skin. Behind her, the forest stood silent, the whispers fading into the distance. Ella knew she had escaped, but the darkness of Mistwood Forest would never leave her. It lingered in her mind, a reminder of the thin veil between reality and the unknown. And though she survived, she understood that some places are best left untouched, their secrets buried deep within the shadows. Alright everyone, that brings us to the end of our story. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. And if you have similar stories you'd like to share with us, feel free to reach out. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.